alone, choking for a long time. Swimming in your pussy, I'm a diving. Your nigga keep blowing up your line, put it on silent. Okay, I just play my role. Told me we should take it slow.
Hey you guys, I am here with the homie Knox. We are continuing our conversation about politics, and this episode is geared to education. So we're just having a conversation, or really he's gonna gain me and on his POV on politics within education, and what that looks like, and what his thoughts are on it. So, what's up?
What's up? What's up? I guess this is thanks for having me over here.
Yeah.
I like what y'all doing. I love the content that you're making. I already know this is a multi-billion-dollar play that's gonna help the community. So,
And that is true. Coming.
All the time.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me your thoughts. So I'll post this, I don't know, this week or next week. And as you all know, the election has happened as of right now, because they said Trump is trying to do a recount and take it to Supreme Court. But as of now, Joe Biden will be the president elect for 2021. So, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are not ever linear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think on one hand, people of color won this weekend.
Absolutely.
Okay? And I want to be very specific about that. I think that as a person who is also a historian, who keeps continual track of presidents and how they are judged and viewed before and after office, right? That's just, like I said, something I keep up with.
Right.
My views may differ a lot because I'm big on legislation. Legislation outlives the personality, okay? So sometimes people can get caught up in the personality, but I'm in the legislation. The legislation we benefit from today is the Civil Rights Act, although Dr. Martin Luther King isn't here.
Right.
Okay, so it tells you that it takes about 30 plus years for legislation to be fixed enough, a fixed entity enough to benefit the people and create change, right? So sometimes we look at change, we say, all right, this should happen tomorrow. But judging from history,
it won't be that way.
It's planted, but the seed don't come at least for 25 or 30 years. Right. So I'll say that first. As a person who keeps up, I understand that the legislation of the outgoing cabinet, the legislation wasn't as, in layman's terms, the legislation wasn't as bad as it was made out to be. And that will be shown over time.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, facts.
Okay. So like the policies that were in place.
Yeah, but the legislation that got passed during the
administration.
Right. Like nobody kept up. So nobody really knew what legislation was being passed. Right. But I'll just say, as a person who knows, that we're going to be very surprised in the annals of history, as in what legislation was passed during this cabinet for the benefit of Black people. Okay. I just need to make that a caveat, because that's a big part of the election. Black people showed up. This and that. So that's why I make that reference.
It's a big piece of it. It's a big part. Yeah.
So just to put that out there. How I feel as a person who follows legislation, I just have to see how they legislate. Okay. You know what I mean? Right. And I want to say that to everybody that's listening, that is the most important part of the game. You know what I mean? And I've been talking to some people about it, and my first question is like, wow, that's what happened is great. I'm glad everybody showed up. But can you tell me the 3 branches of government? And people have gotten so riled up by everything that's going on out there, but they couldn't tell me the 3.
Right. That's what a lot of people say too when I have certain conversations. Well, I don't say a lot of people, but certain conversations I've had with certain people, that's what has been said. You know, people are so riled up with the antics opposed to like what's really happening behind the scenes. And so,
like I said, legislation is important, and you know, it's more important that if you didn't vote, but you know who the 3 levels of 3 branches of government is. I'm happier about you knowing that because
you're being
an
educated,
informed decision.
Right.
Than if you're out there being like, I just don't like this person, I just don't like that person, but you don't know the 3 levels.
Right.
3 branches.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I just, like I said, everybody don't have time to keep up with that stuff and kind of study that stuff. So that's why I just decided to put it out there. Like, it's about the legislation.
I know one thing though, moving forward, I just tell people it's not necessarily a victory, at least not to me. We just have to see what happens.
So, no, it's the legislation. I mean, you know,
it's still so much work to do, like regardless who stayed or who's going to be in there.
Well, I mean, like I said, these people are just the ones who present the bills and who veto the bills.
That's it.
You know, we got to get on the grassroots level and be the people that are actually helping to put together the bills. You know,
that's really.
You know what I mean?
Really, I feel like. Well, I guess I kind of feel like it's hard to do, maybe because I feel kind of removed from that process. I think that maybe it's always easier to maybe connect with an organization who's already a part. Because I tried like, oh, hey, let's, try to do something, but, I'm not that familiar with how to get that rolling. So,
I mean, and I understand that, even though like I said, we're moving to education, but it's just everybody using the skills that they have, right? So let's say you don't know where to go to get the paperwork so you can get the ball rolling.
Right.
Let's say one other person does not know how to put it in a language that would be palatable to take it to the federal hill. You know what I'm saying? Like, but everybody has a little thing. You may have a network of people that can do all that. I may not.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So just because you're not down there like scribing it, may not be the thing that you're supposed to do. You know what I mean?
Right.
And in this whole little journey, like I said, everybody's job is uniquely different. You know, and they just find out what they can do.
Pieces of the puzzle.
You know what I mean? I might not be the one that want to write everything, but I know where to get it all, put it on the table, and say, hey, maybe we
be resourceful in another way.
But just the legislation part. So I'm kind of far removed from feeling about politics because politics is just like kind of math. Like the answer is the answer.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like the answer is the answer.
And I was gonna say how. What do you mean?
What I mean is that people either get in there and do what they say they're gonna do, or do what's best for the people in spite of the people.
Okay.
Or they don't.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? No matter how you feel about it. You know, you can be like, oh, I really, Don, you really got under my skin. That's a feeling, because as soon as they started counting the other votes, everybody started getting happy. It was a feeling.
Right. Emotional. Right. Emotion.
But like I said, at this stage, people, communities, it's time to get specific about how legislation affects us.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And that's going to get to the bag for the community.
Well, yes, agreed. And that's along the lines of education, because you need to be educated so that you know what to do. So, what's your thoughts? Let's break it down. Education, starting from preschool. Do you believe in preschool? General ed. College. Like, what's your thoughts about it?
I think Well,
and what do you think? I'm asking a bunch of questions. I always do that.
But
what do you think about the institution of education, and what do you think that could be done different?
Well, there are a number of archaic elements still in education, right? Like, this is the era where even education got to be cool. You know what I'm saying? It can't be some tedious.
Right.
I believe in knowledge. I believe that becoming educated is not going to be just your certificate.
Okay.
You know, because I know people get a certificate and I talk to them, they're like, yo, I haven't read since I graduated from college. I haven't read one book since I graduated from college. You know what I'm saying? So it gives me a different spin. I do believe in the power of the library. You know, I believe that, you know, for specialized things that, you know, your degrees and everything, that really is important.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I also know that if they gave everybody, if everybody came out with degrees, there's not even enough jobs or positions. And if you get an advanced degree, it's for you to create a business. An advanced degree is not for you to work for somebody. So when it comes from the little people, you know, Head Starts and preschool, I think they can work if they're community based. Okay. I think they're effective because the community can kind of dictate and delegate what tools that these babies need, because the babies are the best part.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So what tools these babies need in order to be able to compete, not in 2020. They're competing in 2030.
Right.
So as a community, we giving them tools that we got from the 1980s and 90s for them to compete in 2030, 2040, 2050.
Right, so it's outdated.
Yeah. So, but I think community-based, I think that everything when it comes to education for the little ones starts at home.
Okay.
Like if you are not present for your babies at home, they're not gonna learn anyway, because they're not gonna learn how to react to that in the real world.
Right.
You know, in my opinion.
Right.
So, you know, everything to me when it comes to the little ones starts at home.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, they can sing every 808 song, bumping bass, and they can sing that song. They be like, oh, that's so cute.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's a number of things that they can learn there.
Right.
Knowledge is power. Education is a tool.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And it's a tool that'll, you know, like somebody
break
told me
that
before.
down for me.
Well, knowledge is power, and people try to say now, oh, well, if you don't use the knowledge, it's not power, right?
But that's.
But it's like the knowledge is the power, because as we talked about earlier, you can sell the knowledge,
right,
and not even have to move. You know what I'm saying? The education is a tool because it allows you to get into certain rooms. But if you get into that room and you still don't have knowledge, you're going to be ushered right back out that room.
Right.
But if you got the knowledge and you get in that room without that piece of paper, they're going to fix you a plate and they're going to ask you what you want to eat.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You know?
Would you stay?
You know? So, you know, like I just look at it from that perspective, and they work very well hand in hand. But I also think that everything has been so kind of separated that we haven't really learned how to bring those two together. So that's where you have a lot of the social, not social justice, but the social benefits where people are trying to bring 2 and 3 industries together, because that's what happens when you bring the knowledge and education. So solar panels and things like that.
Right.
But you know, for that to be said, like I believe that anybody that's coming from a less than great conditions has to use education to get out.
So in the midst of it all, though, and like especially the underserved communities, you know, like how do you see or you think things could be better? Because you mentioned, you know, it starts at home, and I think so as well, no matter where you live or where you're from. But if you're from a community that can provide necessarily like a daycare facility that's you know, somewhat jump starting the kindergartners or the preschoolers, like what do you do?
Well, you know, that's a question that, you know, has been turned over so much over time, you know, and for we get it right for a while and then we drop the ball. Right? We get it right for a while and we drop the ball because, you know, one person, you know, taking on 10 or 12 of these kids because they care and they love them,
right?
You know, at the same time they wind up neglecting their own. You know,
happens often.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So that's like the catch-22 when you want to just like in underserved communities. But you got to pull, you know, the people that know what's going on, you just gotta pull them out and give them a change of environment for an extended amount of time. If they know they're going home in 3 days, they don't have to change their behavior. You know, so, and I mean, a behavior leaning toward learning, leading to a knowledge,
Right.
to, you know what I mean?
Right.
But they know they're gonna be gone for a week or two. Then they're like, all right, this, you know, I'm gonna be here for a minute, so let me see if I can get something out of it. You know, I know some of the homes, you know, in those communities have challenges. You know what I mean? But the whole community doesn't have a challenge.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm big on the kids follow. So I'm big on making sure that you take the achieving kids and match them with the other kids. Because it's just like, you got J's, I want J's.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, you got the game, I want the game.
Right.
You know? So that psychology is a psychology that we can understand when it comes to that. And we got to use it as a tool to be like, all right.
How to drive the other,
kids. Right. Because, I mean, that whole kind of I want to copy, I want to match, you know, mentality, you can actually stick it in there and kind of get them to go, you know, with incentives. Because it is really about money.
Well, yeah, and incentives is a good thing.
Yeah. It's, you know, you teach kids down there how to make money, and then the knowledge and education looks totally different. But if you're being
because it's something that's appealing to them, as like you mentioned, it needs to be fun. Interesting.
But it's all theoretical. Like, if you do this, you're gonna get money. We can't see that in the community.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Here's some money, go do that. Oh, I'm on it. You know? And it's just the understanding of psychology. I remember I was talking to some guys before, and we were talking about how different cultures learn. Right? Because, you know, they couldn't understand, even with me, you know, I had to explain to them how I learned. You know, because a lot of what they were trying to do was kind of backwards to the way that, you know, communities learn, and even our community. Right? So, you know, their whole view of it is, and even it was being applied to these kids you're talking about. You start with the idea, or teaching them a discipline, and then you're like, when you get to this point, it's going to be amazing once you figure it out.
Right.
That's not how we learn.
Right.
We need to know the destination first.
Now, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Really.
So you got to start being like, all right, this is the answer. This is what we're going to get to.
Right.
Because we can mechanically figure out the rest, because that's just a part of us in our existence here. You know what I mean? So like, a lot of what they being used is a reverse model, which is like bing.
Right.
That's just not the way. Certain other cultures learn like that, but that's just not how a culture learns. It's like, this is where we're trying to get to.
Yeah.
And it's a way of life.
Yeah.
You know, and you tell anybody, yo, this one, that's what we're trying to get to, let's do it. And then we start working it out, you know? So, but like I said, when it comes to education in the areas that people consider challenged, you know what I mean? And I just talk kind of in a blanket way, because, like, you know, like I said, I'm from the bottom of the bottom. So, you know, even to be like challenged is like, okay. I just think that, like, they won't have the support structure, because they may even be coming from multiple generations of people who aren't literate, who may be just functional literate, as I say, like they only literate enough to do their job,
to make sure, or to function enough to pay bills, just to, really make
So how do you you know, how do you come in and apply a plan for something like that? Because it may not be as malice as they make it. They make it seem like it's malice. Like, you don't want to teach your kids. Like, maybe some people don't know how.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Because they're coming from generations of people who have just been like, I ain't got my glasses on. Can you tell me what that said?
Right, but really just don't know.
Exactly. You know? And I think that's something that we don't really take into consideration when we're looking at the kids. We look at the environment like, oh, you know.
We have to look many layers deeper. I think everything is just pretty surface. People just assume, like, oh, you're just doing this because, you know, you're just bad. Right. You're not listening because you're just bad. It's like, no, well, there's a lot going on at home.
Yeah. And the language, you know, language is important when you talk about that just that cluster. You know, because sometimes you could be saying things to them, as I've said before, and you're not hearing the same thing.
Right. You know what I mean? The comprehension is different.
You know, so you got multiple generations that may not have had the opportunity to focus on their studies or focus on growth and development within.
Right.
But they love their kids.
Right.
But that's never was given the tools.
Right.
You know what I mean? So then it becomes, all right, how do we do the rest of that? So, you know, I used to have a perspective on it where I you know, I didn't go to that next level. You know what I mean? I was like, yo, you being really negligent about the progress of your little one.
Oh, okay.
But then I realized that they don't even know what I'm saying. You know, so then I got to get deeper and say, oh, well, we really need to not really focus on the baby. We need to focus on you.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So when you go into those communities, we're trying to focus on, like, we're going to save as many kids as possible.
Right.
You know what I mean? You got to focus on, you know, who's
in charge.
Right. You know, they may need to take the classes and things beforehand. You know, you create an incentive for them.
Right.
You know, and then any of the young people like, yo, my mom is doing this, doing that. You know.
Also, too, that creates like pride and motivation and like people feeling like their self-worth or they're self-worthy. You know, they're worthy of these things. Yeah. So, I mean, well, we'll see if things change. But in regards to politics and policies and stuff, what do you think will change, or even what the current administration has put in place? Do you think that it will benefit us educationally?
Yeah. First off, I think the current administration has done what it was supposed to do.
Okay.
It's wake everybody up.
Yeah. Well, and that's for sure. In one way or another.
Nobody will be able to be attributed with that but this administration.
Right.
The wave, the woke wave,
yeah.
All of that is attributed to this administration.
Right.
For good or bad.
Right.
You know what I mean? And this is, like I said, this is not a defense of that. It's just that we don't have to choose. We don't have to choose a side. We can choose what's best for us.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's just our current situation in the system. Like, I'm not here or there. This is the pot. We need this, this, and that. Y'all can go do what y'all need to do. Right. Everybody else has to pick sides, but we don't. Yeah. We're not going anywhere.
Right.
We've been here since the beginning.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, the whole game is to be like, we need to pick, but we don't have to choose. We can just look at what's best and pull that out. So I'll just give it, you know, that part is good to see people talking, people communicating with each other about things that matter. Right. A little more, you know, we still got some sleepwalkers.
Yeah,
but it's way
also
more.
too, I realized too that you can't expect everybody to be quote unquote woke at the same time or interested. Like, some people may arrive to the party a little late. Yeah, I mean, as long as we holding the party down, they can come and enjoy themselves. You know what I'm saying? We just don't want to cause them. We don't want no problems. Right. We'll take care of everything. Right. You can come and you can enjoy it. Right. Just they can't get into work. Yeah. But I do give, like I said, credit to for the simple fact that, you know, most people are feeling connected. And I'm talking about on both sides of the fence. Because just as much as, you know, the neglected portion of Americans, you know, I'll say that because I want to include everybody that was in that pie. Right. You know, the other side needed the homogenized too. You know what I mean? They, you know, all of that other thing, they needed that too, because one side can think they're the only ones that's hurting and lost and feeling forgotten. Right. You know what I'm saying? They feel that way too. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, and it's their first time having for a lot of them, like I said, it's their first time even having a Caucasian president. They don't even know that's their first experience. Because Yo had 8, he campaigned for 3, so that's like 11 years. Right. So if you were that age and now you're 20, this is your first time seeing that. Yeah. Ever. Yeah. You know, so like I said, it's a certain thing, like I said, culturally that they needed to deal with, and regardless of the faces that it showed, you know, I was looking for more of that, because the more of that, the more the communities and the people started raising up and getting a spine in their back. You know what I mean? So I was never looking at it like this, but I'm like, this is probably one of the best things that ever happened. Yeah. You know? And you're definitely not alone in that thought and feeling, yeah. You know what I mean?
So in my expectations now is just like, I tell people, like, you can only get one thing from an administration. You may have 7 or 8 goals, but personally, you have to decide on what's the one thing that if they did, you would be fine, because they're not going to do the other things. Right. You know what I mean? For me, I think I'm a big focus on the babies thing. I'm not, you know, I would just really do everything I can to really grab these generation of babies and make sure that what we produce is something that we don't have to worry about what, you know, fixing too much of what already was there. You know what I mean? Like, you can actually cut it off.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, you know, politicians out there thinking, they're not thinking about that group, the babies that are going to be there, right? But you can change 10 generations if you just curve them, you know. So, I mean, I would just like to see more attention
for
in that area
for the younger.
You know what I mean? Because they go to the other end of the spectrum and they're continuously trying to fix and repair what they damaged, and it's never going to work.
Right.
Like, you did
also, too, they focus too late. So what I've noticed with certain students that are in the elementary age group is that the staff of the school, all of them, they start way too late, opposed to, you know, if the kid is going to preschool there at the school and or kindergarten, to really tackle certain issues, to pay attention early on, even if like a teacher, you know, speaks up on it and say, hey, you know, I'm having trouble with this particular student or students, you know, there's no real help immediately. You know, they let it fester, or they put band-aids on it. Right. You know, let it fester, and then now you have a kid that's about to be a freshman in high school, and it's about it's all bad. You know, it's like, well, what are you doing? And now you want to do all these extra things for them now, but it's like you should have been applying that early on. Right.
So. And the only reason I know that because, like, when I was younger, you know, I tested well in this, you know, for this particular thing, and then I was like, you know, kind of taken from downtown to, you know, to Johns Hopkins University, right? So I was kind of bussed out there from around the way, like from the time I was a little shorty all the way up almost through high school, right? So a lot of my mentors were very accomplished people. Like, you know, one runs the United Nations now, he's Prince of Jordan, and another guy was a real estate mogul. So I probably tested like 7. Okay. So at that point, you got, they curved it. So I saw the blueprint. I'm like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, okay, if you catch them now and you put them into this pipeline, right? They don't have to give up their passes. All that happens is that their mind becomes in a way to be utilized for the community. But it's, like I said, it's very hard to fix the thing you messed up, because you don't have you have enough insight to damage it, but you don't have the insight to fix it,
to repair it.
You know what I mean? So, you know, my thing is the babies. Like, you can really cure most of the ills that are happening if you focus on the babies. You know what I mean? And that's the real constituency to me. You know, because at a certain point, you know, people want to do what they want to do. They're going to live how they want to live.
That's true.
You know, for the babies. you know. But like I said, I'm not, like I said, my expectations is a do for self. Self-determinism. You know what I mean? Black self-determinism. Okay? Like, you push yourself. You know what I mean? Because this country is green. You know what I mean? And at that point, you get that, you can actually section you and your peoples off and your community off and start to create your own way of life. You know, so, but I'm big on, like, nobody's gonna, you know, nobody's gonna do anything for us. Right. You know what I mean?
Except for us.
Yeah, Dr. John Henry Clark said you have no friends. You know, and you have to keep that in mind, like, that this thing in a capitalist system, a system of capitalism. The only thing they guarantee is that you can set your price and live your life. Okay? Like that's what capitalism is. You can charge anything you want for what you got. You know what I mean? That is the most that you can expect from this system, because that's all it's really based off of. Now, all the other layers we put around it, the social justice, the feel good aspects of it, are things we do to just make the ride. You know, I need heated seats. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, you take that dough and you put it on the things you care about. You know what I mean? They are not going to, even if you went to them or whoever, the cabinet that's in, they don't even know where to put the money. Because you have to be on a grassroots level to know where the money go.
Right. Well, so I mean, even with money, like, okay, the money isn't being properly distributed to the schools.
Right.
So it's like, well, how can they even get ahead? Like, I remember when I was in school, and I want to say maybe middle school, and I had a friend, and she was saying that in elementary school, she opened up the same book that her mom had used because her mom's name was there. I'm like, I mean, was that the only copy? Like, what is that? Like, why is it still continuing today?
Well, I think we underestimate how small communities really are because we live on the World Wide Web, right? So let's take an area where we reside. It's really only 100,000 people. That's why everybody can know each other. And most of these, besides like some of the major cities, are similar, 100, 200,000 people, right? So when communities that small, one, they're not going to get the budget. Two, they're not producing enough innovators to innovate those texts.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, people leave, maybe go to school, come back, but they're not thinking like, yo, that textbook is really out of date.
Right.
Let me bring...
That's the thing too, side note, that a lot of people, like I know a lot of young college graduates who recently graduated but don't really have any immediate plans to come back to this area. Until, if so, it'd be a much later date.
Yeah, I mean, we know it costs, but
not even just costs. It's like they'd rather be a teacher or wherever elsewhere.
Right. Try years a way of life. But that's the part about
and that's the part of giving back too. Like, I just thought about that when you said that. If I go to school and I'm a teacher, but I don't want to come back, how am I going to help?
Yeah, I mean, nobody wants to see the person that they went to school with, and you come up and he he's teaching or he's working in the office. You're like, hey, didn't you graduate?
Right.
It's the stigma with that. But I'm more or less like...
But it's like you should care about your community more so than a look.
Yeah, but you should come back as an innovator. You don't leave the same way you're coming back.
Okay.
So you've learned all these things about how to innovate education. What is the groundbreaking, forward-thinking, most progressive aspects of education because you went and studied.
All right. So
you need to bring one of those techniques back. What I used to do a long time ago is I bring all the kids to the park and I teach them in the park. Like, you go look at all these groundbreaking techniques. Like, all right, guys, what are we going to do?
Right.
You go to a 4 or 5 year, 6, 7, 8 year school, and you don't bring back one innovation, because when you bring that innovation back, that innovation turns into money. Now you created a whole new program that didn't exist, and there will be money there for you. There's no money for the old programs. There's nothing for the old hustles. You know what I mean? For the extended nonprofits that don't really do the work. You know what I mean? The other ones that have people at the top of the food chain who get most of the salary, and then the rest of it is done by interns.
Right.
That's the old model.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, so the innovating of it is where I think we are now. You know what I mean? Because people, you go around the world, you do all these things, and you just spend your life around strangers. And I think that's becoming less desirable.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Just even people on Facebook want to have a full picture of their family, as many generations as they can. So it's a trend that's happening. We're like, yeah, I need to be home. COVID has forced people back home.
Right. Yeah.
But even when you talk about the textbooks, it's just like, if you don't have creative people and innovators coming out of your school, you're still gonna look like the 1920s. You know what I mean? Because even if 3 people go to school and they come back and they be like, yo, this is our goal, and they come back and they focus on it, it's not even a hard sell. You're from the community,
right?
You ain't got your paperwork,
right?
You know, like that's what the whole thing is made for. But I think we're just in the age of innovation in education. You know, with the people being able to do the Zoom and it being accepted and not seen as some like weird, like off-brand thing. Like, oh, my kid needs to
like
be.
This is a new thing. Like this is it.
Right.
This is real.
Master classes being sold online.
Yes.
People having their, teaching people how to do everything from finance to accounting out of their Instagram page.
Yeah.
We are just going into the age of innovation where a textbook is going to be nothing. Like, people are texting whole textbooks with people that they are indifferent with.
Yeah.
And he said that.
Yeah.
So like, we are at a different age where like the next person might write their textbook on their iPhone that's being used in the schools. But another thing, those bookmakers have contracts with the school and everybody's getting kicked back. You know what I mean? So it's in everybody's best interest to keep that account going. They're not getting new books, but they're definitely getting a new budget.
Because that's the problem. Like, for me, I'm like, okay, well, where's all this money going to, right? We live in California, we live in the Bay Area, and the taxes, they're not going down. So it's like, as much as we get taxed and continue to be taxed, where's my money going to? Why is this homeless people?
Yeah, well,
and even though that's not about education, but it's just to the point of where the money is not being allocated properly.
The thing is, in a lot of these committees, because all of this money for education and these different things are in committees, right? So at one point in time, I asked myself, where's all the money going in these different cities? And so I go and I look at the committees coming out of Senate, coming out the House.
Okay.
Right? So they have all these committees that allocate funds to all these cities, all these major cities, right? But all these people in these committees don't reflect the people in the city. But all the people that reflect, the people that reflect those in the city, they're on these really obscure committees.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But and it's consistent across all the cities. There's no one that looks like the people in them cities on the committee or any of the committees that concern money.
Sense. Yeah.
And I was going through like
that makes sense.
I might still. I'm sure I still have that stuff. I was like, what? So you in a city like Chicago, and for the last 25 years, there's never been a person on the finance part of that committee for the money to come downtown. Not one in like 20 years. You know what I'm saying? So I'm sure if we go ahead and we finish checking the Bay Area, I guarantee you the person who has the fiduciary responsibility of allocating that,
they're not part of the community. Yeah.
Right. So, so then you got all these other people lining up, because if I ran the committee, I know who's going to be lining up.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, here y'all go.
Right.
Go teach the babies to do that. You know? So, but these are the things that we don't know, because we're just getting there. You understand what I'm saying? Like, we're just getting there. Like, people talk about, Tulsa and Black Wall Street and things like that, right? People talk about that, and I get it. But, this generation is the best that's been created in the history of being here. This one. The ones that are living in this time are the best. Okay? They come from the strongest bloodlines.
Yeah.
Most savvy.
Yeah.
Because their bloodline was able to survive.
Right.
So we are just able to step into that part now. A lot of the regrets don't belong to this era. They're regrets that are passed down. But they don't belong to this era, because this era is doing everything that they can.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. No,
you know,
truly.
but it's the first. I only know that because I came through a certain era where we were the first.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's why we kind of, you know, we look at life as a contact sport. It's a little different.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that was the, you know,
that was the temperature
of the day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we would never ever, you know, when it came to law enforcement, okay.
Right.
Like we never.
Right.
And those eras were much more Wild West than now. But that was never something you considered, and it was nothing they considered. You know what I'm saying? They kind of knew what it was, you know?
Right.
So now we have this era coming through where like a lot of the questions that's posed on those levels are to be solved by this generation because they have the tools, they have the techniques. They don't have the wisdom.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because
But they can group with people and
Right.
have conversations with
Right.
people and bring people on that could help provide
that wisdom. And that's why I
yeah.
put it out there, like to publicly say they don't have the wisdom, because it's like that's what you need, and you can only get that through experience.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's what wisdom is your wise ways and actions. But it's you can't be 2 years old and get the wisdom.
Right. No.
You can have a little light inside. People are like, oh, they got a little light inside,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But you know, I just think that this, like I said, this is the best generation. I just think that online in the World Wide Web is a Ferrari. And they don't really know how to drive it yet.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So they trying things, you know, and this is not like a diss.
Like really trying to figure it out.
Right, right. But you can only, but that's when you come from a different era, you know, like you really need to sit at the foot of people to give you all of it so you can run with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's, you know, karate movies, like you don't, everybody wants to like kill a samurai. Samurai need to show you all his techniques.
Right.
You know, and if you get in the jams, the samurai like just come from out of nowhere and he help you out and then he go
back.
Yeah. You know? But like I said, it's just like, I think this is just where we are right now. You know what I mean? And understanding that, okay, you know, self-determinism, you know what I'm saying? The babies are the best part. You know, we got to start from the root. So you got to get to their parents before you get to them. You know what I mean? Because even if you get to them and you give them the knowledge, the wisdom, understanding, and education they need.
And that's a big piece too. Like, I don't want people to skip over that. Like, really think about that. Like, so it is about the babies, but also too, their parents need help, the knowledge and guidance and whatnot, so that they can continue to forge forward and also help their children.
Right, because if the babies, let's say you have 1 or 2 babies that you pull out and they become successful, they still got to carry the whole family on their back.
Yeah.
And that increases the percentage of them having to make a U-turn. Because they were built to like kind of persevere, kind of apply their studies, kind of use the resources that are available to them as people.
Right.
But after all those people say, man, you're doing a great job, you're a great kid, you turned out great, they got to go back and kind of work on
everybody else. And try to have everybody else to, at least, if you can't get to where I am, at least get to close to where I am.
Or just be able to take care of yourself enough so I can keep forging ahead.
Yeah.
Or
at the very least.
Or to take care of yourself don't even mean monetarily, like just take care of yourself. Because if I get, I understand pulling a family out of poverty. I know what that is. You know what I mean? And I know all of the speed bumps involved in that.
Okay.
And that's why I say you got to go here. Because if you get here, you're not going to do nothing but turn back around. You love your people. You're not going to you don't want to have to throw your whole life away in order to get success or access. And, your parents, your parents can love you, but they're not be in a position to take care of you. And sometimes we think because they can't take care of us, they don't love us. You know what I'm saying? That's not the same thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it's like, so kind of getting in that route, at least teaching them how to be a support structure for the one that's about to change generations. They have to be skilled with that. Or all that's going to happen is the baby going to get pulled out and then they gotta become a parent, and then they gotta come back and grow people up.
So if you had to, like, I don't know, write out five rule type of thing in regards to, you know, I guess beating the odds with education, even though, you know, the money in regards to politics, the money's not being funneled how it's supposed to be. What would those 5 things be?
As far as from the like self-determination aspect,
just like, this is what I would do. This is what I think, you know, what it should do.
First, I would, if it was personal, if it wasn't addressing like the parent thing beforehand, first thing I would do is I would make sure that I understood the library as in its purpose. Okay. You should take your kids to play at the library. It should be a fundamental foundation of their world.
If you wasn't going, well, COVID, but once this stuff dies down, you
need to do that, because when things get tough, when things get rough, that'll be the place that they go to for solace, and nothing bad happens at the library. You know what I mean? And I don't care if you hardcore, softy, whatever, that's just a place. Because then that fosters and starts to cultivate curiosity intellectually. You know what I mean? And it becomes, you know, similar to a reference book, it becomes a reference place, right? The next thing I would do is, you know, I would make sure I understood language. Meaning that the words we use every day, we really don't know the definitions to, because we inherited them. Okay. I'm not saying everybody, but for the most part, right? So understanding language, because everything in this country is based off language and etymology, right? So first you get to the library, then you understand the language of the place that you are in. Okay. So actually, when you do those 2 things, you've already accelerated yourself, because once you learn the language, then you learn that that's the, you know, English is the language of business. So once you learn the language and what words mean, you've instantly put yourself into the commerce part of the capitalism. Okay. So, you know, at that point you get, you know, then you understand how finance works. Okay. Because you can sit up all night and study all these areas that you don't know or that you think successful people do, but you live into a capitalist system. It's capitalism. Some places have socialism, we capitalism.
Right.
Library, learn the language of where you are, because that is the language of commerce. So you could take English all over the world and use that, because that is the language.
You too.
Right. You know what I mean? Then you learn finance. You know what I mean? Like, you have to learn finance and not just budgeting, because we live in a capitalist system. You know, you can buy one stock of Nike for the same price you buy the J's. It's actually cheaper than the J's. Okay. But once you do that one step, you'll start to understand how money is created. You know what I mean? And by the time you do that, you know, those next 2 things will really be, you know, personal for you. You know, because then you can go from there. Once you know how those things work, then you can start to focus on, you know, making sure your mental health is in the right place. And some people say focus on your mental health first, but if you don't understand you live in a capitalist system and how to do it, you're gonna think you're going crazy anyway.
Right. You need to understand what you got going on first.
You know, so you know, at that point, you know, I just say that, you know, it's important for us to find people a couple paces ahead of us to talk about your mental space. Talking to your peers is not going to be as beneficial. You know, because your peers supposed to tell you, yeah, I went through the same thing, right? You know, when somebody say, yeah, I went through the same thing 15 years ago, you're like, wow, how did you get here?
Exactly.
You know, so after you know how this capitalist system works, because even if you get to the mental health part, you know, like I said, that's going to maybe take a couple chips, maybe take something you need, you know what I mean? But if you don't understand how the money is flowing here, and I talk about that a lot, because that's the thing that makes you go crazy. Somebody have an empty stomach, they might do something
wild. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I said, when you can grow all that in your front yard.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, and so you know, you'll get to that point. Like I said, mental health would be next. You know, because if, like we said, if all of these other elements of understanding capitalism, the library, etymology, the language of commerce, you know, you use all of that to, you know, like to start to get your mental health right and make sure that you're talking to people that are a couple more paces ahead of you.
Right.
You know.
Yes.
That's what's ultra important. Especially now we have like an ageism thing going on. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, the old heads don't know this, old heads don't know that.
Right. Also, too, I feel like the old heads are really not that old.
No.
Like, you could be 35 and somebody be like, oh, you an old head. It's like, no.
yeah. I mean, but that's what I mean about their understanding of it in that way. You know, but they judge life from iPhones.
Yeah.
So like, you know, you was this age when the iPhone 1 came out? Like, no, I got actually a classic iPod right here. What?
Right.
You know, but I just think, like I said, it's important for people to get to some people that are paces ahead of them for your mental health.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Because they've already been through it. They've already experienced it, and it's been some time since the incident had occurred. So
and they have to table thoughts that they don't even table thoughts that might not even make it to a conversation, right? So when they're paces ahead of you, it's like they've had to table things all this time, and you may be, you know, stumbling upon or trying to figure out a resource or answer to a question, which with age you've already tabled those. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's mortality, whether it's sexuality, whether all these things, you've already tabled that, because to get to that point, you had to say, okay, this is what I am, this is what I'm not.
Right.
You know, and you know, another thing I'll put on that is just like learning to be your own best friend. You know, like that's another thing that's important. You know, because what you would do for somebody you consider your best friend, sometimes you might not even do for yourself. You know what I'm saying? You'll have times when you go in this store and you go, I want that, but I'm not gonna get it. 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 And their birthday come up and be like, boom, here you go. You can have it all. You know what I mean? And it's just important once you understand those other elements, because once you do the study and the capitalism and understanding finance and then dealing with your mental health, a lot of these are gonna be solo ventures, solo missions. You know, and you have to learn to be your own best friend at that point, because you can turn it upside down. You can get all the education, you get all of that, but you don't know how to treat yourself right. You know what I mean? And be kind and loving to yourself all the time. So, you know, and like I said, in that order, I think by who you become by that time will pull you out of whatever circumstances, but also allow you to cope with the new version of yourself. Because some people get over that hump, but they don't know how to cope with the new version of themselves. So now you got the knowledge, you know how to get your bag right. You know what I'm saying? You understand the system you in. You got your mind right, but you like, who am I? You know what I'm saying? You got to become your own best friend. You know what I'm saying? At that point to kind of do that, you know. But that's, you know, that's how I would lay it out. You know what I mean? Because you can be your own best friend, but if you don't understand the other things, you're your only friend. Like, I don't even know how to get around this, you know. And that's just personal, you know what I mean? But yeah, when you ask me about those 5 things. Okay,
yes. I mean, well, there you have it, you guys. Tell the people where they can find you.
You can find me on Instagram at Civilized versus Uncivilized. You know, that's the only place I am right now. But you can check me out, and just if you could put that, you saw me right here, and I give you the green light, because it's VIP. You know what I mean?
I'll put the info down below, and if he accepts you, he accepts you. If not, he just messages you. That's it. But thanks, Knox, so much for coming down.
Thank you.
It will not be the last time.
Oh no, we're gonna be working.
Yes. So y'all know what it is. Talk to you later.
Peace.
If I'm ever going to talk.